Welcome to another deep dive. We are tackling global inequality today. It's a huge topic, and it's really important for all you UPSC aspirants listening, especially for that international relations paper. We're going to be using this global politics text as our guide today. So think of it kind of like we're giving you a cheat sheet to understanding, how the world's economy really works, right? So there are three big things we got to talk about. Are there forces making things more equal? Or are there forces making things less equal? And then there's this tricky thing, right? Where sometimes inside a single country, things are actually getting more unequal.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like a paradox. You'd think with globalization everything would even out, but that's not always what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the good stuff first.
Hmm.
So this textbook we're looking at, it really highlights like the crazy rise of China and India, right?
Hmm.
So what is it about how fast they're growing that's such a big deal for global inequality?
Well, they're just growing way faster than developed countries. You've got like 8 to 10% growth in China and 7 to 8% in India, right? And then you compare that to like the developed world, which is maybe 2 or 3%, if that. So when you think about it, they've got almost 40% of the world's people. That kind of growth, it changes everything.
Yeah, it's like they're changing the whole game, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of changing things up, let's talk about China, reducing poverty. I mean, that's like a textbook success story.
Oh, yeah, big time. So the World Bank actually said that China hit the Millennium Development Goal, which was cutting extreme poverty in half by 2015, and they did it way ahead of schedule. Think about this. 1978, 250 million people were living in absolute poverty there. By 2001, just 28 million. It's like the biggest drop in poverty we've ever seen.
I mean, that's incredible, right? How did they do that?
Well, they had a bunch of different strategies working together. They like massively ramped up their manufacturing, especially things they could export, and they went all in on infrastructure. Plus, they had those population control measures, like the one-child policy.
Yeah.
And don't forget, they made their programs to help poor people a lot better too.
So it was like a mix of economic stuff and social changes, huh? But developing that fast, that's got to come with problems too.
Oh, definitely. There were some big environmental costs, like pollution going way up. And because cities were growing so fast, people were moving around a ton. That really stretched their resources thin, and it put a strain on society. Plus, there were worries about workplace safety and whether the one-child policy was messing with families, too.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that progress, it always has a cost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of like you got to give something to get something. So we've got China and India doing really well. But are there places where things are going in the opposite direction?
Yeah, unfortunately. Sub-Saharan Africa, it's a different story. There's this the 2009 Human Development Report, and it's not good. The 24 countries at the very bottom of the UN's Human Development Index, all Sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow. So what are the big signs that things are not going well there?
Well, life expectancy, that's a big one. It's only 49.6 years. That's so much lower than the world average, which is like 68.1. I mean, think about it. Their lives are almost 20 years shorter than what a lot of us are used to.
Wow, that's a real wake-up call. So why is Sub-Saharan Africa struggling so much?
It's complicated. There's a ton of stuff all tangled up together. One big thing is this poverty cycle idea, right? So if you're poor, you're probably not healthy. And you probably don't have much education. And that means you can't really get a good job, so you stay poor. It's this horrible cycle that's hard to escape.
Like one problem leads to another and then another. So what else is making this cycle worse?
Diseases, big time. Heywood and malaria. They've been devastating. Back in 2007, Sub-Saharan Africa had 68% of all the Heywood cases in the whole world, and 76% of the deaths from AIDS were there too. And malaria, we can prevent it, but 90% of the people who die from it are in Africa, and 80% of those are kids.
Oh, that's just awful. So is there like one main reason for all of this, or is it like a bunch of different things?
It's not just one thing. It's like a perfect storm. You've got civil wars, crime everywhere, corruption, and governments that are just weak. Plus colonialism, the effects of that are still here. And you got like deep ethnic and tribal tensions that keep leading to fighting.
Like it's not just money, it's history and politics and how society is set up all mixed together. Anything else making things tougher for Sub-Saharan Africa?
Oh, yeah. Their schools aren't great. They don't get much investment. And the population is growing super fast, like 27 out of the 30 countries with the highest birth rates. They're all in Sub-Saharan Africa. And then there's this thing called the resource curse. Basically, sometimes having a lot of natural resources can actually make things worse.
A resource curse? Wait, Why would having lots of resources be a bad thing?
It's kind of weird, right? But what happens is a country starts to depend too much on just one thing, like oil or diamonds. And then when the price of that thing drops, the whole economy tanks. Plus, everyone starts fighting over those resources, so you get more corruption and wars. It's like instead of helping, those resources just cause trouble.
It's like they have all the ingredients but no idea how to make a good meal. So we've got these trends, right? China and India going up, sub-Saharan Africa struggling. But what about inequality inside countries? Like, why are some people getting richer while others get poor, even when the whole country is doing okay?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to dig into next. It's really important to understand this, especially for those of you studying for the UPSC. We'll be right back after a quick break.
So we're back and ready to really dig into this whole thing about inequality inside countries. It's kind of like this hidden problem where even if country is doing well overall, the gap between the rich and the poor keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, and it's something that doesn't get enough attention. People focus on global inequality, but this is just as important, especially if you're, getting ready for the UPSC exam.
Totally. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about how China's economy has been booming.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about rural poverty being a problem there, too. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, sure. So being part of the global economy, that's been a huge reason why China's grown so much. But it's also created this weird situation, right? Like, they're coastal cities, they're doing amazing, lots of manufacturing, lots of exports. But the rural areas,
Yeah.
not so much.
So it's not just about the country growing as a whole. It's about who's actually benefiting from that growth, right? So that kind of leads to the big question, doesn't it? Why is the gap between rich and poor getting bigger, even when globalization is supposed to help everyone?
Well, there's a few things going on. One is technology, how it's changing. New technology, it often helps skilled workers more than unskilled workers. So the people with the education and skills to use that technology, they do great. But everyone else, they fall behind.
It's like the skills gap that just keeps getting wider. And in a global world where companies can just go find the cheapest labor, the people without the right skills, they're in trouble.
Exactly, exactly. And globalization puts pressure on governments, too. They feel like they have to cut taxes and get rid of regulations so companies will invest in their country. And that can help the economy grow, but it can also mean cuts to social programs and weaker unions. And that just makes inequality worse.
It's like they try to help in one way, but it ends up hurting in another. Are there other things that are making this gap bigger?
Oh, for sure. We can't forget about the choices politicians make. In a lot of countries, economic policies have really favored rich people. You get tax cuts for the wealthy, and wealth just keeps piling up at the top.
So globalization might be part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. The policies that countries decide on, they really matter.
Absolutely. And when a small group of people has all the wealth, they also end up with a lot of political power. And then they use that power to make policies that benefit them even more. It's a vicious cycle.
It's like this feedback loop where money gets you power and power gets you more money. So we've got technology, globalization, and political decisions all playing a part in this inequality problem. So what can we do about it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Governments and economists all over the world are trying to figure that out. There's no magic solution, but there are a few things people are trying.
Well, let's hear them. What are some of the ideas people have to fix this mess?
One idea is to make social safety nets stronger, things like healthcare and education that are available to everyone. If everyone has those basic things, it helps level the playing field.
It's like giving everyone a fair shot, no matter where they come from. What else are people thinking about?
Taxes. Specifically, something called progressive taxation.
Huh.
Basically, the more money you make, the more taxes you pay. And then that money can be used for social programs to help close the gap between the rich and the poor.
So it's kind of like sharing the wealth a bit more, right? Make things a bit more fair. Anything else?
Yeah, some people think we need to put more rules on banks and financial institutions so they don't take crazy risks that could, crash the whole economy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because when the economy crashes, it seems like it's always the people who are already struggling that get hurt the most.
Right, exactly. And then education and job training, those are super important too. We got to give people the skills they need to succeed in this economy that's always changing.
Yeah, like give people the tools to adapt and thrive.
Yeah.
Right. But we also got to do something about those political decisions that have been helping the rich get richer at everyone else's expense.
You got it. We need more transparency in government, more accountability, and we got to make it easier for people to get involved in politics so they can have a say in how things are run. That's how we'll start to make things more fair.
It's a huge challenge, that's for sure. But understanding why this is happening, that's got to be the first step, right?
Totally. And that's what we've been trying to do today, give you the knowledge and the tools to really think critically about these issues. And for all you UPSC folks out there, this stuff is like gold for that international relations paper.
Yeah, it's all about connecting the dots, seeing how everything fits together. We've talked about China and India doing well, sub-Saharan Africa having a tough time, and this whole complicated thing about inequality inside countries.
And remember, these things aren't happening in separate bubbles. They're all connected, all influencing each other in this global system that never stops changing.
So it's not just about remembering facts and figures, right? It's about understanding the big picture, how all these forces are shaping the world.
And that's what we're going to leave you with as we wrap up this deep dive. First, global inequality. It's a messy issue with lots of different things happening at once. Second, globalization can be good or bad. It just depends. And understanding how it affects inequality is really important.
And last but not least, fixing global inequality, whether it's between countries or inside them, it takes a multi-pronged approach. We need economic policies, social programs, and political changes all working together.
It's about making a world where everyone has a real chance to succeed, no matter where they're from. It's not just about economics. It's about doing what's right.
So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the crazy world of global inequality. We hope this has given you some food for thought and maybe even inspired you a bit.
And if you liked it, hey, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into, the stuff that really matters. Let's keep talking about this and spread the word.
And until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep fighting for a better world.
Yeah, it's like we've given you the tools, and now it's up to you to go explore, right?
And for anyone out there who's, working towards the UPSC, this deep dive, it lines up perfectly with like the international relations stuff you got to know, being able to analyze these trends, understanding what causes them, and coming up with solutions. That's how you nail those exams.
Think of it like a secret weapon for those essay questions. You'll be able to really impress those examiners. Show them you get it, that you understand global inequality on a deeper level.
It's not about just memorizing stuff. It's about thinking for yourself, figuring out how economic policies, like how a society is structured and all those global forces, how they all connect. That's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up this deep dive, but let's go over those key takeaways one more time. So global inequality. It's a complicated beast, right? We've got things pushing countries together and things pulling them apart.
Yeah, exactly. You've got China and India showing us that big progress is possible, but then you've got sub-Saharan Africa, and it reminds us that there are some really tough challenges that just won't go away.
And we've seen how globalization, even though it's supposed to make things more equal, it can actually make things worse if we're not careful. It's a powerful tool, but we got to use it right.
And the last big takeaway, fixing global inequality, it takes a whole bunch of different solutions. We got to invest in education and job training. We got to make those social safety nets stronger, make sure taxes are fair, and keep the financial system in check.
It's all about creating a world where everyone has a fair shot, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's within a country or between different countries. We got to give people the power to succeed in this world that's always changing.
It's not just an economic thing. It's about doing what's right.
Right.
We all have a responsibility to build a world where everyone can thrive no matter what their situation is.
So there you have it, our deep dive into global inequality. Hope you found it insightful, got you thinking, and maybe even inspired you a little bit.
And hey, if you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this. Let's keep this conversation going and get everyone thinking about this stuff.
And until next time,
Yeah.
keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and let's all work towards a better world, right?